paying attention and I have notes.
Okay, so we are working on final review. We are going to start at the beginning. We are going to start with units 1 and 2. We did units 1 and 2 combined. Okay. We are going to do basically one of every type of question that we did in this unit. Okay, so for the first one, I would like you to simplify. Simplify 24x plus 15 over 3. 24x plus 15 over 3. Everything that we're doing for the next 2 weeks is obviously review. Okay? However, this concept was reviewed from Algebra 1, and yet somehow there are a lot of you that on your last test still messed this up. Right? This has to be split into 2 fractions before you can solve this. Okay? You cannot reduce this. It has to be split into 2. 24x over 3, and additionally you need to split it up so that you have a 15 over 3. You cannot just cancel the 3 with part of this fraction. So split this up to be 24x over 3 plus 15 over 3. Then it's just a simple reducing problem. 24x over 3 gives you 8x plus 15 over 3 is 5. That's the answer that I'm looking for. A lot of you guys did not split these up on your last test, and it cost you a lot of points. Yes, there's a lot of very simple things that we're still making lots of mistakes on. For number 2, if I would like you to solve and graph. Solve and graph. Okay. 7 times 2x plus 5 minus 6 times x plus 8 is greater than 7. 7 times 2x plus 5 minus 6 times x plus 8 is greater than 7. Now, obviously, yes, you're going to have to solve this, but I'm also asking you to graph it. What kind of a graph is this going to produce? Does it produce something that goes like on an XY coordinate grid, or is it just a number line? And how do you know?
The greater than less than.
No, it's not necessarily the greater than or less than that makes it. It's because there's only x's in this equation. If there's x's and y's, that's when you're graphing on an XY coordinate, okay? This one, there's just x's, so this is the type that we are just using a number line for. First, start by distributing. So distribute the 7 into everything in the parentheses, not just the first one. A lot of you guys, again, made this really simple mistake on your last test, and it cost you a lot of points. Okay, if you distribute, that gives us 14x plus 35 minus 6x. Negative 6 times 8 gives you minus 48, greater than 7. Then combine like terms. So combine your x's, 14x minus 6x gives you 8x. Combine your numbers, 35 minus 48 is negative 13, greater than 7. Next, we're going to have to move the 13, so add 13 to both sides. Leaves us with 8x is greater than 20. Divide both sides by 8. There was also a lot of you on our last test that did not reduce things. I have no idea why you just left things like that. Okay, when it says solve and graph, it is implied that it should be in simplest form. Okay, so this does need to be reduced. 4 goes into both of these, so x greater than 5 over 2. This is a number line graph. So on your test, on your final, it's going to be all multiple choice. So it's not really going to be an issue of how to label a graph. But on your homework, you are going to have to write your own graphs. I always want you to do a simple number line with just a reference point of 0. 5 over 2, is that on the right or the left-hand side? It's on the right because it's positive. It doesn't really matter how far right you put it because I don't need all kinds of numbers. I just want 0 and then your number. Is this going to be an open or a closed circle? Open circle. And is it going towards the right or the left? The right, more positive, okay? Small little things like this, okay? Little things like, is it open or is it closed? That's what's going to mess you up, okay? So just try to be careful when you're doing just small details like that. Also, on your, we don't have STAR tests anymore, but it's called the SBAC test now. Anybody that is a junior, okay, you are taking it this year. It is on comprehensive. It will go past what we have learned. Okay, it is difficult. I saw the preview of Math 3 yesterday, which is what it's based on. Math 3 is hard. Okay, it's not that it's the concepts that are hard, but it's that you really have to understand exactly what things are asking you. Okay, so something like this: if I gave you absolute value of 2x plus 4 is equal to 16. If you are a sophomore, next year you will take the test. Okay, it is always going to be juniors taking it, regardless of what math class you are in. Okay, regardless of what math class you were in. If you're a senior, you got out of it. You had to take it last year, though. Okay, so you took some sort of testing last year. So everybody's going to start testing as juniors. 2x plus 4 equals 16. Okay, what do you know about an absolute value?
Always stays positive.
It's always going to end up positive. To solve it, though, how many answers should you get? 2. So you actually have to split this up. So to solve, you're going to drop the bars, leave everything inside exactly the same. So 2x plus 4 is equal to 16, and 2x plus 4 is equal to negative 16. Absolute values, we're always going to split them up into 2. Then we want to solve, so subtract 4 from both sides. This is just a regular Algebra 1 type solving. 2x equals 16 minus 4 is 12. Get x by itself, you divide both sides by 2. I would also encourage you guys to show as much work as you can. I know that it seems like most of you, I'm sure you can do this in your head, but especially on our last test, I saw a lot of people just making really simple errors because they were doing too much in their brain. Okay, don't do it all in your head, write it down. It's not going to take that much time. So x is 6. Here, subtract 4 again. You have 2 negatives, so they're going to add together to stay in negative. So 2x equals negative 20. Divide both sides by 2 again. And we get x equals negative 10. Now, this is where I was talking to you guys about juniors, if you're taking that SBAC test. This is where small little things, you have to actually understand them. It's not just an answer. Would the correct answer here be 6 and negative 10? Or is the correct answer 6 or negative 10? And what's the difference? Is this an or an and answer?
I think it's an and.
Okay, raise your hand if you think it's an and. So a couple people. How many of you think it's an or? And about half of you are apparently not thinking. Great. So for this one, this is actually an or answer. Okay? The reason it's an or answer is it possible for an answer to be both 6 and negative 10?
Oh, yeah.
It's not possible for one answer to be 2 different numbers. It is possible for it to be 6 or negative 10. So small little things like vocabulary on that, just understanding what does it actually mean, is going to be an issue for some people, okay? Especially on that SBAC test. Okay, try another one. Number 4. No, that's not going to be really an issue on your final necessarily, but just understanding not just how to do problems, but what they're actually meaning. 2 multiplied by absolute value x plus 4 plus 1 is greater than 11. 2 absolute value x plus 4 plus 1 is greater than 11. Before we can drop the bars, what do you have to have? What do you have to do before you can drop the bars here? You have to have the bars all by themselves. So here, would you want to move the 2 or the 1 first? The 1. You always want to undo the easiest thing first. So start by subtracting 1. That leaves you with 2 absolute value x plus 4 is greater than 10. How is the 2 attached to the absolute values? By add, subtract, multiply, or divide? By multiplication. So you divide to get it away. What's the rule for when you have to flip the direction?
When you multiply or divide by a negative.
When you multiply or divide by a negative, right? So this one, you keep it the same. Okay? Say it again.
Do you know how it says it's a 2 and then the plus 1?
Uh-huh.
You always do the plus 1 first? The plus
It's the easiest thing, yeah. So instead of undoing addition or subtraction is easier to undo than multiplication or division. So we always want to do the easiest thing first. So add and subtract are usually just easier things that you learned. So I would say always do those first. You have to. But the way I remember it is it's just easier.
Like PEMDAS or something.
Right. That's when you're simplifying just with numbers. If you're solving, you're actually doing backwards PEMDAS. So solving is going backwards. Simplifying, I totally understand what you're saying. But yeah, when you're solving, you actually have to go backwards. Okay? So for this one, if you have a greater than, is that when we split it into two or we make a sandwich? This is where you're starting to forget. Okay? So the way I want you to remember this is great or, and that, yes, I fully understand that is not spelled correctly. Okay? Or less the and. It's really hard for me to write that because it's spelled incorrectly, okay? So great or less the and. Less than becomes an and. Greater becomes an or. Greater implies that there's going to be two separate answers. So that means two separate equations. The first one, you just rewrite it. So x plus 4 is greater than 5. The second one, you rewrite whatever's inside the bars, flip the direction, flip the sign. So less than, and it turns negative. Then we just solve. So subtract 4 from both sides. You should get x is greater than 1. And x is less than, if we subtract the 4, negative 9. Now, just like what I did in number 3, should this have an or an and? This would be an or, because it doesn't make any sense for one answer to be both greater than 1 and less than negative 9. That's not possible. So this is an or answer. Okay, your answer could be greater than 1 or less than negative 9. Questions so far? And I know I'm going like super basic, kind of slow on these, but I need you, a lot of you really need to bust it out on this final. Okay, absolute value 2x plus 1, closure bars, is less than 13. Absolute value 2x plus 1 is less than 13. Now, this one, a less than, is going to turn into what? Is it a sandwich equation or should I write 2? It's a sandwich equation, okay? 2x plus 1, sandwiched in between 13 and negative 13. Now, I'm going to show you something that you may want to use, you may not, but I'm going to show it to you as an alternative, okay? If you have trouble remembering which one turns into a sandwich and which one you leave separate, you can leave this separate, but I'm going to show you why I would not recommend it. Do not write this down, okay? If you leave them separate, you'd make two equations. One of them would be 2x plus 1 less than 13. The other would be 2x plus 1, flip it, change the direction. Or excuse me, change the direction, change the sign. You would solve, which is fine. You'd subtract 1. We'd get 2x is less than 12. Divide through, x is less than 6. Here, same thing. Subtract 1. 2x greater than negative 14. Divide through, x is greater than negative 7. Does this make sense the way it's written? If you do it this way, you have to end up writing this in a way that actually makes sense. This, when you rewrite it, is a sandwich. Okay, x less than 6, x greater than negative 7. So if you do it where you get two answers, you then have to take the additional step of rewriting it as a sandwich. Because if you don't rewrite it as a sandwich, it just doesn't make sense. Okay, plus you're never going to see a test where it's written separately. It just won't happen. So that's why I tell you to automatically put it into a sandwich equation before you even start. Okay, it's less steps for one. You just subtract 1. You're actually doing two equations at the same time, so it makes it a little bit easier. Negative 14 less than 2x is less than 12. Then divide by 2. So you're actually working all the problem, or both equations technically, at the same time, which makes it a little bit easier. And then your answer is exactly the same. So I would recommend trying to memorize that a less than equation becomes a sandwich equation. Okay, it's just easier overall. If you got confused, yes, you can write it as 2 and then change your answer to be written in 1. Does that kind of sort of maybe make a little bit of sense? Hopefully.
What if there isn't a negative?
If there's not negative, it's okay. It could be between like 1 and 6. So it could be a positive. Yeah, that's possible. Generally, you're going to end up with a positive and negative. It's just the way the questions are kind of written. But technically, you could end up with different.
Wait, how did you
With the
graph
same.
that? Both of them go the same way that way?
How would I graph this? Oh, if you graph that, you would just have, so you'd have a 0, you'd have a 6, and a -7 is on the left. So make sure they're on the opposite sides, okay? These would be both closed circles, or excuse me, open circles, and then you just shade it in between.
And if they're going the same way, they have to connect each other.
Yeah, if they're going towards each other, they basically connect. Yeah, so like this is basically saying these are both going towards each other. So we just connect them. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, for number 6. Okay, this one, I would like you to graph. Let's graph, sorry, I just lost my place. Graph 2x plus 3y is less than or equal to 12, and y greater than or equal to x minus 6. Graph. What are these equations of? They just random numbers, random letters. What does each of these equations represent? It has an x and a y. What does that represent? It's a line. Okay? So here we're trying to figure out, where do these two lines, number 1, where do they cross? And number 2, which points are included on both? Okay, so we're going to be shading here. Anytime you have a less than or equal to, or just a less than, and you're asked to graph, you are going to have to shade. Okay, if it has an inequality, you're going to have to shade. So we're going to graph this on an xy coordinate axis. Okay, you can just make your own little one. There will be one obviously on your final, so you're not going to have to make up your own. Can I graph 2x plus 3y is less than 12, as it's written right now? Why not? What
You have to give one.
what version would we prefer it's written in? Y equals mx plus b. So this one's fine. This one's fine. Okay? The other one I need to rearrange. So for that one, how could I rearrange this? 2x plus 3y is less than or equal to 12. How would I start to get y by itself for that? Start by moving the 2x, so subtract the 2x from both sides. That leaves you with 3y less than or equal to, which should go first, the 12 or the negative 2x? The negative 2x plus 12, and yes, I know this is review, I know we're going super basic today, but I want to make sure that you guys are hopefully good at your foundation even. Here, divide everything by 3. You can't just divide the numbers, can't just divide the letters, okay? These go away. Y less than or equal to negative 2/3 x plus 12 over 3 is 4. From here, you can actually graph. So if we graph this pencil line first, where would I make my first point? I'm going to graph this pencil line first. Where do I make my first point? Negative 6. What is that called? The y-intercept. So make your first point at negative 6. That's called the y-intercept. How do you get to the next point? How do you move to get to your next point on the line? What's the slope here? Up 1 over 1. So up 1 over 1. Once you have 2 points, you connect them. So it's going to be a solid line or a dotted line? Solid line, right? I know you guys don't remember this, but that doesn't mean you aren't still going to be tested on it. Okay, so this is stuff that we've done before. That's why I'm reviewing it with you, because I'm afraid we don't all exactly remember. How about for this purple line? Where should I make my first point? 4, and that's called its what? y-intercept. Thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4. How do I get to the next point? Down 2 over 3. Remember, you always want to go to the right. It's just easier. Okay, once you have 2 points, you can connect them. Is it a solid or a dotted line? Solid line, you know that because it has the equal underneath it. Now, this is where we're going to shade. Okay, remember I used to do that, like the Post-its, the cover-up method here. If we're looking at the pencil line, would you want to be shading above or below? Where is y larger? Where is y greater? As it goes up or down? Up. So we're definitely not shading down here. How about this purple line? Would you shade above or below? Y is less as it's above or below? Below. So if you're going to shade above this line, below that one, you would shade this kind of triangle right there. Okay? You will have those on your test, for sure, on your final. All right, 2 more and then we'll be done. This is the longest set of notes for the final review because we are doing 2 units at the same time. Okay? 2 more and we'll be done. Number 7, if I tell you that 5 binders and 3 pencils, 5 binders and 3 pencils cost $13.10. 2 binders and 6 pencils cost $6.20. I would like you to find the cost of each. Five binders and 3 pencils cost $13.10. 2 binders and 6 pencils cost $6.20. Find the cost of each. What do you need to set up here? Anyone remember what it's called? Anyone have any idea where they would start? Anyone care to share? Do I really need to pull out the sticks? Okay, set out, first I'm going to start by setting up a systems of equations. So I'm going to use B's for binders, P's for pencils. You can use whatever variable you like. But 5B plus 3P for pencils equals 1310. Then set up another equation. 2 binders, 2 B's, plus 6 pencils costs $6.20. You have now set up a systems of equations. Now you have to solve it, okay? Remember, there's 3 different ways you can solve this. You can graph, which no one generally wants to do because it's not very effective and it takes a long time. You can use addition method, or you can use the substitution method. Which would you prefer for this problem? You're going to add to cancel things out, or do you want to substitute in? This is not a good candidate for substitution, okay? Because there's no letters that are completely by itself. What you do want to do is you want to get something to cancel. So would you prefer to get the B's to cancel or the P's to cancel?
The P's.
P's, right? You can do that by multiplying the top equation by what? -2. Okay, we want them to cancel. So yes, you would get a 6P. We want it to be negative, so it's going to cancel here. So I'm just going to multiply this by -2 underneath. So -10B minus 6P equals -2 times 1310 is -2620. Add your equations together. The P's cancel out, so we get -8B, -8 binders, costs -$20. To get B by itself, what would you do? Divide both sides by -8. And how many times does 8 go into $20? It works out. Work it out. Would you really want to write 2 1/2? No, we're talking about money. What is 2 1/2 in money? 250. Okay, 250. So leave the decimal points there. You want them. Okay, a binder is 250. Then how do you find how much a pencil is? Plug it back in. Okay, Plug this in here. 5 binders, or, well, you can plug it into either one. I'm actually going to choose the second one because it's a little bit easier. Okay, if you plug it into the second one, 2 times 250 plus 6 pencils is $6.20. $2 multiplied by 250 is $5. $5 plus 6 pencils is $6.20. You subtract 5 from both sides. 6 pencils cost you $1.20. So how much does 1 pencil cost? 6 pencils cost. 6 pencils cost $1.20. How much does 1 cost? 20 cents. Okay, 2 different answers there. Pencils, binders. Okay, systems of equations. This is the kind that you did in either pre-algebra or algebra 1. Questions on how we did this? This is a little scary right now. I know it got, the heater finally turned on, you guys are nice and warm, you're hungry, but you can't be this sleepy yet. I have to turn on the air. Okay, last one. For number, what are we on? 7, 8, 9? 8, thank you. Number 8. Last one. Okay, for number 8. I would like you to solve just for x. Okay, solve for x. In the system, 4x minus y plus z equals 17. X plus y plus 3z equals 2. And negative x plus 2y plus z equals negative 10. So this is that triple systems of equations. So 3 different letters that you're actually solving for here. Or 3 different variables, excuse me, that I could ask you to solve for here. I only want to solve for x. But a lot of times you have to actually solve for all of them just to find y. So first thing you want to do here is decide which letter would you like to eliminate first. You want to try to cancel out the x's, the y's, or the z's. Start by labeling these, equation 1, 2, and 3. What would you want to cancel out first? The x, the y, or the z? It looks like x would be easy to cancel out, but you don't want to cancel that because that's the only one that you actually want to keep. You want to solve. So I would start by canceling out y's. Okay? Which 2 equations would you start with? Anyone remember? You want to cancel out the y's, so you have to pick 2 of the equations that have those letters. So let's pick 1 and 2. Okay, equation 1 and equation 2. If you rewrite them, so 4x minus y plus z equals 17, and x plus y plus 3z equals 2. If we add these together, they're already set up so the y's will cancel. So these are already set up to go away. Add all the like terms, so 4x plus x gives you 5x, plus z plus 3z is 4z, equals 17 and 2 is 19. Now that's fine. Now we have to take another 2 equations and cancel out the same letter. So which ones would you choose now? We already did 1 and 2, so you can either use equations 2 and 3 or 1 and 3. Which ones would you prefer? Jalen, which ones would you like? 2 and 3 or 1 and 3?
1 and 3.
1 and 3. That was a good random guess, but yes. Okay, so it wasn't? Oh, good for you. Okay, so rewrite these. Negative x plus 2y plus z equals negative 10. Okay, are these set up now so that something is going to cancel? So that the y's will cancel? No. What do you have to do so that the y's will cancel? Multiply the top one by 2. So multiply everything by 2. If you multiply, I'm going to write it underneath. 8x minus 2y plus 2z equals 34. Then add everything together. Again, the y's cancel, which is what you want. Negative x positive 8x gives you 7x plus 3z equals positive 24. Now that you have 2 equations with the same 2 letters, line them up and you can solve. So So 5x plus 4z equals 19. 7x plus 3z equals 24. Are they set up so that something's going to cancel? Not currently. What are you going to have to multiply by? Or what would you like to eliminate? The x's or the y's? Or excuse me, x's or z's? Z's. What would you have to multiply by the top one to get the z's to cancel? A 3 and a 4. What's wrong with that? One of them has to be negative. Okay? Doesn't really matter which one. I'm just going to choose the top one to be negative because you want something to cancel, so they have to offset each other. If you multiply these through, we get negative 15x minus 12z equals negative 3 times 19 gives you what? Anyone? Negative 57. Okay, multiply through again. 28x plus 12z equals 24 times 4 is 96. Add these together. The z's cancel, which is what you want. Negative 15 positive 28 gives you 13x equals, what's 96 minus 57? $39? Almost there. Then divide both sides by 13. X equals 3. Now, what else do you have to do? Is there anything else you have to do? No, you're done. Okay? We only wanted to find just that one letter. If it asked you for all the letters or a different letter, you could plug back in. Okay? I fully understand these are long problems. Okay? You guys are going to get your packets today.